Welcome to this pre-recorded agency briefing for the launch of the Lesson 1 Days rental solution. Should you have any questions following this presentation, please contact us via email on travel.coe@mb.govt.nz. During this presentation, we will revisit the rental vehicles Generation 2 original scope and objectives, provide some clarity as to what the service will offer, highlight some key features of the solution, and give some guidance on the sign-up process for agencies. An opportunity was identified for the rental vehicles Generation 2 return to market to diversify the rental options and consider a shared mobility approach to rental vehicles. We would define shared mobility as a transport approach that enables access to vehicles on an as-needed basis. The Generation 2 return to market scope expanded to distinguish general rental vehicles, commercial rental vehicles, and now less than 1 day rentals. As the name would suggest, the less than 1 day rental subcategory provides a short journey mobility option, which is the subject of this presentation. This service is a relatively new option in the New Zealand market, with most NZ providers being in the market for less than 5 years. So what is the service? It's a drive yourself service and thus fundamentally a rental vehicle service. As previously stated, it's a rental model focused on short periods, which are often by the hour. However, hires may be by the minute with certain providers. It utilises a publicly shared fleet of vehicles parked in publicly accessible spaces, and this is a distinguishing feature of the car sharing industry. It's also a full turnkey service with the rental vehicle, fuel or electric charging facilities, parking and insurance all included in the package. Things that we would like to distinguish it from and that it isn't include ride-sharing services, such as those provided by providers such as Uber, peer-to-peer vehicle sharing, or fractional ownership models. Through our agency engagement and market research, we identified 4 key objectives for the Generation 2 return to market. Objective 1 was to increase the uptake of low-emission vehicles in the aim of helping agencies and government as a whole to reduce their emissions profile. For clarity, a low-emission vehicle, or LEV, is any vehicle that plugs in, so this includes both plug-in hybrid electric vehicles and battery electric vehicles. Emissions reduction is a key focus of the less than 1 day rentals category and directly addresses our broader outcome for procurement around waste and emissions reduction. Objective 2 was to ensure agencies have access to the best pricing and availability service levels in the market. And this was a significant focus for provider discussions and agreements, and we will just discuss some of the key features and benefits in this area later in the presentation. Objective 3 was to develop the car sharing market so that it becomes a real alternative to vehicle ownership, and thus better meet the transport needs of agencies first and foremost, and by extension the New Zealand public in the future as the industry develops. Here is where the power of government spend and the AoG business will help develop and grow New Zealand business. And this is another of our fundamental broader procurement outcomes that we've addressed in this procurement. And the fourth objective was to broaden participation by delivering a solution that meets a wider spread of agency needs and ultimately works for more agencies. Some points to update you on. Rental Vehicles Generation 2 was launched back in February this year, and the contract started in March this year. The less than 1 day rental subcategory was staged to progress afterwards, and we're now launching that solution. A key point to note here is that agencies that are already participating with the Rental Vehicle Generation 2 solution and have already signed the form of accession will not need to sign another form of accession to participate in this subcategory. However, participating agencies will need to complete a rental service order with the individual providers to use their services. We have aligned the contract expiry date with that of the other subcategories within the solution, namely the general rental vehicles and commercial rental vehicles. The service will be an open panel of providers, which will allow the provider base to grow during the term of the solution. And here are the 2 inaugural providers for the less than 1 day rentals category. The current panel are focused primarily on the Wellington and Auckland areas, but we expect providers will increase their national footprint over time. As previously stated, the panel will be open, and this will allow the provider base to grow during the solution, and we will keep you informed as providers are added to the solution. The solution allows your agency to choose one or more of the providers depending on your needs and location. There are three main usage types for car sharing, and these usage types vary by provider. Early car sharing operating models focus primarily on round trips only or a back-to-base model. However, we're expecting that as the car sharing market develops, that we'll see an increased focus on one-way travel and free floating models. City Hop offer predominantly round-trip usage options where these vehicles need to be returned to their home base. However, they are developing their one-way capability with airport integration part of their future roadmap. Mevo are unique in the New Zealand market with their free-floating usage model. This model allows hires to begin and end in the designated home zones, essentially allowing one-way travel within the home zone. Mevo are looking to grow the Wellington CBD home zone and potentially create new home zones in the future to meet agency needs. These are some key features from the solution that we would like to draw your attention to. The first is market pricing. We have bettered the market in all cases. We have achieved this while ensuring that the offers from providers are financially sustainable. What this means for you is that you can participate in this AoG solution and have confidence of receiving the best in market commercial terms. There's also no membership fees, which means you only pay for when and if you need the services. We've also negotiated availability service levels that are not available in the open market. This should provide you with improved confidence of availability, but will also allow providers to improve their service over time. Availability service levels will be assessed on a fulfilled versus unfulfilled booking request basis, and performance will be reported both at your agency level as well as the COE level. We will work with providers on a month-to-month basis for the first 12 months to ensure we firmly bed in the solution, and following this we will move to a quarterly provider review basis. This means that we can track availability performance closely and identify potential issues early. It's also at this point that we'd like to draw your attention to an important availability commitment that Mevo, one of the two providers, has supplied. If a Mevo vehicle is not available at the time of booking within 400 metres of the signed up agency's registered office, then Mevo have agreed as part of their availability commitment to provide a taxi substitute at the same price that the user agency would have paid if the Mevo vehicle had been available. Moving on to the emissions reduction area, providers are developing carbon offsetting opportunities at no additional cost, which means agencies will have further opportunities to reduce their emissions footprint as part of this solution. Mevo are significant in that they've offered a 200% emissions offset opportunity for all their journeys. For liability, providers have agreed to take liability for all damages where clear evidence for agency liability cannot be demonstrated. This means that the burden of proof sits with the providers to establish the liability and not with you as the agency. This was of critical importance to us to provide protections against erroneous claims. And finally, agency onboarding incentives. We have negotiated and provided time-bound incentives when agencies sign up to each provider. This will help develop momentum and uptake of the services in your agency. Now, coming back to the original objectives, I'll speak to some of the key outcomes and how we've addressed them. In the emissions reduction space, the solution will introduce more than 100 low emission vehicles, with an early indication from providers that that may double in the coming year. The vehicles will be dispersed across multiple locations to ensure a balanced and easier access to the low emission vehicles. With us, the providers to enable low emission vehicles by default on their booking engines for participating agencies to encourage the use of these vehicles in their fleet. As previously stated, Mevo have also offered an emissions offsetting program of 200% on all journeys at no additional cost. There's also an additional public benefit here with the vehicle fleet replacement policy for the providers leading to an improved second-hand low emission vehicle market. In commercial terms and availability, we've achieved the best in market outcome for you as an agency participant. And we've bettered the market in 15 to 30% for all catalogue items. We've secured no membership fees, as previously stated, and achieved availability commitments, with the Mevo offering being the most notable feature. In developing the car sharing market, of course, by offering the AoG business and agency usage through this model, we think it will lead to reliable base of business for for car sharing providers to develop. And in the participation space, we have developed a participation growth plan to identify key agencies that could benefit from the less than 1 day service. We have secured a commitment from providers to promote AoG by default. And we will also be working directly with providers to identify opportunities to extend their footprint outside of the Auckland-Wellington area and bring in new providers with a different geographic focus. This flowchart shows the sign-up process for the less than 1 day rentals category. A launch email has been sent out to our participating agencies, and that email contains a link to the NZGPP procurement website for further information. That link is also shown at the bottom of this slide. After reviewing the website information, we would direct you to contact the relevant providers. The provider will then set up a meeting with you to discuss your requirements and conduct a needs analysis. After the meetings and discussions, the provider will finalise the implementation plan, which will be combined with the signed rental services order. The provider will then return this executed service order to us here at MB. Lastly, it's about implementing the service, adding additional drivers, and then your agency is ready to start making bookings. On the contract website, we've included agency guidance for things to consider as part of the solution. Some key points to consider when engaging with the providers include your insurance policy, your travel policy, your ICT policy and security policy, as well as your governance model and the membership management strategy you'd like to approach with the providers. Here are the key points we'd like you to take away from this presentation. The service is a drive yourself, all-inclusive service that includes the vehicle, fuel and electric charging, parking, insurance, all included in the single package. And as the name would suggest, it is focused on short-term rentals. The panel is an open panel with an initial provider base of 2, and we're allowing this to increase over time at the discretion of NZGP as new providers come into the market. Agencies can be assured of the best in market offering, both in terms of the commercials and in the availability space. Agencies can enter into service orders with 1 or multiple providers, and we ask that you consider your location and specific needs when doing so. The less than 1 day's rentals is part of the wider rental vehicle Generation 2 solution. And if you're already participating in that solution, you do not need to sign another form of accession. We will be providing supporting collateral on our website to help you better understand the sign-up process and the offerings from each provider. If after listening to this presentation you have any further questions, we would ask that you please submit them to travel.coe@mb.govt.nz. We would also direct you to visiting the rental vehicle contracts pages shown at the bottom of this slide. Thank you.